If you haven't been feeling too well and you've been going to your doctor to get blood tests to see what's going on with maybe your thyroid or especially your hormones, I'm going to tell you that you need to stop. Stop going to the wrong place and getting the wrong tests to figure out what is going on with you. Oh, hello again. My name is Samantha Lotus. I am a human optimization specialist. I'm also a naturopath, have my degrees in psychology, sociology, and I work specifically in human optimization. And if you haven't seen my last video, I have brought myself, and life has brought me into a state of burnout, and I have been documenting the journey thus far. And I'm about to tell you why going to your doctor is not going to help you when it comes to figuring out your hormones and what you can do instead. When you go to your doctor to test your hormones, typically what they're going to do is just do a cortisol test. So what that does is it takes your blood and it tests to see how much cortisol is released into the blood. There are multiple reasons why this isn't going to give you the results and the picture that's actually going to be beneficial for you. The first reason is that when you're testing your cortisol, you're testing it at one point during the day. And that's only going to give you information about where your cortisol is at that specific point. So it's a little snapshot of a little point in your day. The other thing is that it's not testing all of the other metabolites. It's not testing your free cortisol, it's not testing your cortisone, it's not testing the different peaks and valleys that your natural hormones are meant to go through. And so you're not getting the true picture. The other thing is that it's not testing your detox pathways, your methylation, it's not testing all of your other sex hormones, and it's not going to give you a reading on your inflammatory markers, on your different neurochemicals. And so it's really ultra limited, and it's also not as accurate as when you do a dried urine test. Also, when you go to see your doctor and you get these results, most of the time, the markers that they're testing, even if you're at a very low part of the marker, if it's within the range, they're going to say you're perfectly healthy. And that's actually what I see so often is people coming to me saying, my blood results looked fine, my doctor said I was fine, yet I feel terrible. So you want to make sure that you're doing the right testing in the right timings, in the right sequencing, the right frequency, so that you're getting all of the measures that you need to be able to put together the pieces of the puzzle to see what's actually going on. The hormone test that I use is called the Dutch Advanced Hormone Panel. There are various kinds that you can get, but I like to get the complete version where you're getting kind of a big picture of everything. And what this does is it tests your hormones over 4 or 5 times throughout 2 days. You start at 5 p.m. on the first day, that's your first sample, and then at 10 p.m., which is supposed to be around at a bedtime. The third sample is the first thing upon waking, and the fourth sample is 2 hours later. And this is a dried urine sample, so you're urinating on these strips, you're letting them dry, and then you send them in and they test for all of the different chemicals and the different hormones. This is really important because the way that your hormone graph is meant to look and the way that yours might look, it tells a big story. If you're starting with very, very high cortisol in the morning and then it starts to drop throughout the day and then spikes back at night, that is severe adrenal dysfunction. Another situation could be that you start really low and throughout the day you're kind of flatlining. That's pretty significant adrenal burnout. It could be that you raise a little bit, drop a lot, maybe have a 5 p.m. raise again, and then you're staying a little bit high. That's what we see in a lot of people that have adrenal dysfunction, but also insomnia, or reasons why they can't sleep, or they feel agitated, feel really lethargic or low energy. So how about this? I'm going to show you my Dutch results, my hormone results, and I'm going to go through a little bit and showing you what it tests, what it looks like, and all of the incredible things that makes this the most comprehensive and effective test that you can get if you have not been feeling well, or if you just want to know where your hormones are at for yourself, or maybe you want to start a family, or maybe you want to go out and do a marathon or whatever it is that you want to do. Knowing what your hormones look like and what's actually happening in your body can give you a really great insight into where you are and where you want to go and how to bridge that gap. So let's go take a look. All right, I got my matcha. Let's dive in. Okay, so this is My Dutch test, I ordered it for myself. You just have all my details here. It collects when your last menstrual period is. This is if you're a woman, because men do not menstruate, and your collection time. So one thing to know about the Dutch test is that it collects a sample over the period of 4 or 5 times over the span of 2 days, where when you get a blood test, it's only collecting 1 time, and it's through your blood, which is different than through saliva or urine. And that's giving you just a one snapshot. It's not giving you the full picture. So I'm going to dive in. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I'm going to show you the things that you want to look for. So this is the summary. It will give you like how to read these results, where your range is, where the patient range is, where it's green. It shows you the low limit, the high limit. Ideally, you want to be in the middle. And so it shows your estradiol, progesterone, testosterone. It comes here, you're looking at your DHEA, which is a very, very important precursor for all your hormones. You were looking at the free cortisol, and then we're looking at metabolized cortisol. And so this is one of the places where I wanted to point your attention to. When we're looking at adrenal burnout, what you can see here is the metabolized cortisol is actually below the low limit. So the low limit is 2750, the upper limit is 6500. If somebody is in extreme adrenal fatigue, they might have a lot of metabolized cortisol, but very low free cortisol. They might have a lot of free cortisol. They might have still very high cortisol, or even off the charts cortisol. But here, because it's very low, it's showing that my body is in adrenal fatigue. The other thing that we want to look at is here. And this is, so the first sample that you take is the waking sample. So immediately upon waking up. The next sample is an hour later. And then the third one is at 5 p.m. and the fourth one is at 10 p.m. So as you can see here, there's an upper limit and a lower limit. And ideally where we want to be is somewhere in the middle where we wake up at a certain amount of cortisol and it rises within that first hour. And then gradually throughout the day, it starts to decline to around that 5 p.m. mark. And then it just slowly tapers off so that you can fall asleep, have really great sleep. Here, as you can see, I'm starting quite low, meaning very hard to get out of bed, feeling just really heavy, lethargic. And then there is a rise a little bit, but it's not really a great rise. It's not really the rise that we're looking for. And here, as you can see, it's not the right drop. So there's a little bit of a second wind at the time where we're not supposed to have that second wind. And the body is producing, maybe it's like adrenaline coming out or extra cortisol at that time, which is not really what we're wanting to see. I'll go into that a little bit more. What I love about the Dutch test is how deep it goes. So it goes into the progesterone metabolites, which you really need to know, especially if you're wanting to get pregnant or stay pregnant. So here it's at the lower end of the range. Estrogen and metabolites, we're seeing often here higher end or above the luteal range. So, and here the 4-OH, above being more the inflammatory markers that we're not wanting to have. Then we go into DHEA, the low end. We definitely need your DHEA for everything hormone related. So it shows all of that, additional markers. This is where it also gets quite interesting, where you see the pregnenolone. That's a tricky one. And you're seeing how your hormones are converting and what's happening here. And you can see, again, the low end of the DHEA. When that is low, it's pretty much going to cascade. Everything is going to be lower. Yeah, we don't need to get into too much. But one of the markers here that we do see is this more inflammatory marker. So this is the 4-OH-E1. Ideally, this you want to be as low, like way lower than 1.7. I mean, it still is within range, but it's quite high. So we want it to be quite lower because this is more the inflammatory pathway. And this is where DNA damage can happen. We want to go in the pro-inflammatory, so the healthier pathways where the hormones can go through. And here also what we want to see is methylation, if we're methylating properly. And here it shows that I'm on the high range. So that can show that there's just a methylation problem, or I'm not detoxifying, say, the extra estrogens. And so that is a clear sign that I want to do some work on the detoxification pathways. Okay, let's go. And we're going through this quickly. Creatinine, daily free cortisol. Again, that's kind of just showing what the graph is showing, cortisol metabolites and DHEA. Here we can see the stress response, how the adrenal glands and DHEA or goes to cortisol. Again, that metabolized cortisol. And so here we're seeing the cortisone pattern and the free cortisol pattern. Again, we're not wanting the afternoon one to be higher than the morning one. And so that's showing this inverted, just, a mess of a situation in cortisone. So what else do I want to, okay, it shows your B vitamins, your glutathione marker. Now, these above range doesn't mean that there's good glutathione. That actually means that there's a deficiency in glutathione. So the body is not producing enough, or it's being depleted too fast of the glutathione. So that could also show there's too much stress, or the body is really depleted in vitamin C. It could be many things, but this is a very clear sign to work on glutathione production. What else? Dopamine is on the lower end of the range, which makes sense if there's a lot of high stress. Digestive challenges that can definitely affect the dopamine. Melatonin, still okay, it's within range. Yeah, and then it goes into, again, how to read it, all the patient samples, just telling you what's happening, the progesterone metabolism, yada, 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 yada. So that's pretty much all I wanted to show without going into all of the good details. So as you can see, the Dutch test is way, way, way more comprehensive than any blood test that you could get. I highly, highly recommend. The other thing that I'll say with the Dutch test is it will show you, like I showed you, all of your hormones and what's going on, your inflammatory markers. There's other things that it shows you. It's also great for men as well to see if there could be any inflammatory markers or issues with testosterone conversion. And one thing that a lot of men don't know is that when you are starting to bald or starting to get a receding hairline, that's not just genetic, that's often an improper conversion of your testosterone to DHT or dihydroxytestosterone. And that's not a good thing, and that's not normal, and you can actually fix that. So for all you men watching, it's also really a great idea for you to get your hormones tested also. The reason why I got the Dutch test is because I was feeling exhausted. I was feeling really run down. I had so much stress happening for the last really long while, and it was affecting me not just in my energy levels, but also in my digestion and my menstrual cycle. I was having a heavier menstrual cycle. It was much more painful than it had ever been. And I know that my diet is really clean, my lifestyle is really clean, I don't consume any toxins that I'm aware of, and all my products are fully natural, so it didn't make sense that it was digestion related or that it was endocrine related. It actually made sense that it was stress related. So the Dutch test did give me a big picture of what was going on, and what I will say is that it's not fully showing the root cause. Yes, stress is obviously a lifestyle factor. Yet, I also did a few other tests, and I'll tell you about that in just a moment. I did a few other tests to find out what the other root causes could be. The other tests that I did were a mycotoxin test, which tests for molds and different toxins, a whole slew of them. I did a sensitivity test, which tests all of the foods, the beverages, but also the environmental factors, different metals, different trees, pollens, all sorts of things. And that shows you what your body is sensitive to. And that's really important because if you're constantly being introduced to foods, beverages, or environmental factors that you're sensitive to, that creates a strong histamine response in the body, which is the body's fight or flight allergic response. And that can be a root cause as well. So I highly recommend that test. And the third test that I did was the GI map, the gut panel. It's an intensive gut panel to show if there's any viruses, parasites, bacteria, or any other bugs or issues with my flora to see if there's something going on there, which bacteria and pathogens, those can be a major, as well as viruses, can be a major root cause for people. The final test that I did was a blood test. I wanted to see how things were going with my minerals, how things were going with my liver, with my white and red blood cells, my platelets. I wanted to just check everything out. So that is also one of the tests that I did. Let me know in the comments if you would want me to make a video on all of the tests that I did that I just mentioned and show you my results and go through it. If that would be helpful for you, let me know. Write in the comments, say yes to the tests, and I will make sure I get that for you. If this has been helpful for you, I would love for you to comment or like, or even consider subscribing if you want to stay tuned for the journey. In the next video, I will do either all of the other tests that I've done, or I'll go into my protocol on what I'm doing to heal at a root cause the nervous system and all of the other systems that go along with it. Again, thank you so much for being along with me and sharing this part of the journey with me. It means the world, and I love you so much. Mwah.